everybody. This is Dave Trivett here, owner of V3Connect, and I'm doing another V3Connect focus on the community. Today I'm here with the phenomenal Michael D. Davis, owner of Michael D. Davis and Associates, and we're just going to have a great conversation that adds value to the community and hopefully all of your lives. So, Michael, welcome. It's good to be talking with you today.
Same here, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So what could you tell us a little bit about what it is that you do, what your business is? And I think that would be a great way to get started.
Well, Michael D. Davis and Associates, and a lot of people ask me about that associates part. They walk into my studio and they think, gosh, where is everybody? Where's all your associates? But I have what I consider somewhat of a unique perspective. I don't have competition. I have associates. And I have clients who I also consider associates because many of them, like yourself, Dave, become friends. And of course, anyone who's been in business for any period of time knows that the best way to do business is to be a friend to those people who you help. And I certainly do believe in that. So my business is on the very top surface is still photography. I've been in business since 1992, so been around the block a few times, seen ups and downs, experienced a lot of ups and downs. It's debatable in whether we're in an up or a down right now, but we're working through that, and I'm keeping a very positive attitude about it. I also write, and I also mentor and teach. In fact, one of the things that I do, and let's see if I can get this hand right over there, yeah, you'll see that there's a logo for the Photo Forum. And what the Photo Forum is it's an educational opportunity for those people who have an interest in photography, whether they're just starting out or seasoned professionals, to get together and just chat about photography. And we can learn a lot from one another that way.
How long have you been doing that and using that format? Were you doing the before COVID, and how has COVID changed the way that you are interacting with clients and the people that you're teaching and whatnot?
Well, I'm glad that you asked that. Prior to pre-COVID, I was having people come down to my studio. I have a studio in downtown Medford, Oregon. You've been there, so you've seen it, Dave. You know what it's like. Nice and quaint, but it's comfortable. And I would have about 6 people, half dozen people come in on a Saturday morning, and we would just talk photography. And it was wonderful. People would have an opportunity to share images, and we'd learn a lot. And it was very free flow, similar to what this event is that we're doing right now. And it's a lot of fun. And of course, once COVID began and we were no longer able to meet, there were the restrictions put on it, it was decided that we should get a little bit more techie and do exactly what we're doing here. And I thought, well, hey, it's really a convenience for a lot of people because they don't have to get out of their fuzzy slippers and they don't have to drive someplace and find a parking place. We can do it right online through Zoom or any of the other social vehicles that allow us to do that. So that's what I've done. So to answer your question, how has it changed? Very much so technologically. A lot of it has to do with, fortunately, I enjoy teaching, is helping people get over that more than likely psychological idea that they've got to transition from actually being in a room with someone to viewing them on a screen and interacting that way. As you know, Dave, Zoom is extremely easy to do. As long as you have a phone, a smartphone, a computer, whether it's a laptop or a desktop, you can actually connect that way. And this is what I see as part of the new normal.
So that's an interesting comment. And actually, I just did a video on the new normal. You like that? The new normal, because I hear people talking about this, and I'm sure and the people that watched the video that James and I had done on the new normal, or the fallacy of the new normal, that I would kind of throw out. And I have no idea what you're going to say, but it's interesting because, you know, the new normal originally was that when there was an economic upheaval or change in the way that we did business, or 07, 08 was a good example, and Dodd-Frank and all this other stuff that came out, that was the new reality within our financial, and that was originally a lot of the scope of the new normal. I find it interesting when things are definitely not settled at all with COVID, regionally, nationally, or globally. Is there some validity to the fact that how can we have a new normal if things haven't even settled?
Very true. And of course, a lot of things are in play and in flux right now, which makes it extremely difficult for entrepreneurs, small businesses, to really know just what they should do in order to be successful, reopen their business. And of course, it's hit everyone very hard. Um, there's a lot of politics obviously involved, and I don't want to go into that obviously, but the real scope of the matter is what do we do now as individual entrepreneurs, but also as a community. How do we uphold our businesses, because so much of what we decide to do is going to make much more of a difference than actually what happens, say, in Washington, D.C., or even at the government, the state government level. We've got to be responsible for pulling ourselves up by the bootstraps and coming up with new ways and new opportunities, which to me, that's what the new normal will be.
It's fascinating. I appreciate your input, because it is kind of like a little bit of quicksand right now. Things are very fluid. It's hard to even like wrap my head around, and other people have said it too. Like, quite literally, when all this stuff started happening, things were changing by the hour until we went into the stay-at-home orders here in Oregon. And nobody really knows exactly, and this isn't a political, like, I guess anything could be viewed politically, but everything that we do and the way that we focus, and I love what you said there, is that this is our community, how we interact and how we build business and how we do these things. While they may be changing rapidly, I think that we're able to take on those issues as a community a lot better than a person feeling like I'm the only one that's, you know, suffering in this situation. And it's I like that perspective. I appreciate you sharing that. The larger scope is going to be very interesting to find out kind of where we end up, right? And nobody really knows what that's going to be like. I know we do some live events, and I know you were always going to live events, and you had this amazing camera with this lens about that long. Okay, so you were already social distancing, in all fairness. It didn't appear that way because you had a lens, you know, that was about 2 feet long. But now a lot of people don't even have those events, right? We don't have Shakespeare here. The Brit's not going to go on. Right. You're involved a lot in the community, and it would be interesting, you know, what does that activity look like? Well, I know what it was pre-COVID. What does that look like for you now? Because you were out running all the time, like a lot of people were. What does that look like for you now?
Well, as you said, things are in flux. And one of the things that I do, I refer to, we've all heard, you know, diversification of portfolio. And generally, when we think about that, we think, you know, financially, that's what we're really talking about is portfolio, which I take a little bit different view of. I've diversified my portfolio by not only operating a working studio as well as teaching, but I also am the social media specialist for our local Parks and Recreation department. So a lot of what I am trying to help do is foster this idea that in regards to actually exactly what we're doing now with Zoom meetings is they discovered that a lot of the classes that they were offering in person could no longer be done that way. So we really had to assess and see just which ones would be a good fit for like Zoom classes. And it's amazing how many are actually, and they may not necessarily think about it. Everything from dance classes to teaching Spanish to teaching photography. But what's really been tough is on the local governmental level is to get people to understand just how these work together and how it'll be of value to our community, because it will keep people working. And there are other things. I also happen to help coordinate the local summer concerts in the park series. And of course, now it's like, what do we do with these? We can't gather in groups larger than 50 or 150 at some point. So how is that going to shake out? And I'm trying to be helpful in that way and giving some suggestions and thought to that, as much as the department will allow me to.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing, and I know that your skills are amazing. When the local it was previously Bear Creek Park here locally, now the Olsrud Family Community Playground. I took photos. I saw you out there all the time because I'm on the foundation, and it is not an easy thing to do what you do, though you make it look easy. I just want to
I
let you
try.
know.
Thank you.
So yeah, I took tons of photos, and not very many of them turned out extremely well. But it's a learning curve, right?
Yes.
But experience, because you also did a photo shoot that was great. You did a photo shoot for us last year. I think it was last year. Was it?
I believe it was. Yes.
And people said some of the people that were there holding, taking certain positions and stuff, they were like, man, that is the best picture I've ever had of myself. Like, I don't know if there was like a better like testimonial. Anthony was there and he was like, this is the best photo I've ever seen of myself. It was taken by you. So yeah.
Well,
Props to you.
I've worked a few years at it, but my joy is not just being able to create images for folks like yourself and other organizations and individuals, but it's also helping others, giving a hand up to folks that want to break in to this, this industry of photography.
Yeah.
It's tough. There's a lot of people that have the money to purchase equipment, but once they get it, it's difficult for them to transition because they don't understand the basics in often. And so what I try to do is backfill and help them so that they'll get a better product.
Absolutely. So it's fascinating, how people end up in the business that they do with the photography and the writing you do. Let's say the photography. How did you get started down that path? I know you had said it was all the way back to about 1992, but what did that look like for you? What brought you to that point? Why did you choose photography?
I'm not sure whether I chose photography or photography chose me, honestly. My first exposure to the magic, let's say, of photography was when I was in junior high, and I ran across a book put out by Life magazine. These amazing black and white photographs of events throughout history, and it just fascinated me. And I'm going, wow, these are so powerful. So a few years later, I had an opportunity to get my very first camera. I was a frustrated artist. I couldn't draw. Please don't ask me to sing. And I needed some creative outlet. It was just something that I really hungered for. And fortunately for me, photography was it. My passion for photography began in earnest when I was in high school. I did the usual things. I worked for the high school yearbook. I worked for the newspaper, but always with a goal in mind of eventually creating something out of this that could sustain me. So you might say that my entrepreneurial spirit began at a very early age. I feel blessed and I'm extremely thankful that I was able to find my calling, so to speak, at such an early age, because I know this doesn't happen often for young people. They do a lot of searching, but I didn't. I won't regale you with all of the details in between the beginnings of my passion and how I ended up in 1992 opening my business, only to say that I didn't go a conventional route of education. I didn't go to a college. I went into the military, and I was a combat photographer when I was in the military. Excellent school. It was 6 months of 5 days a week, 8 hours a day of nothing but photography. So you might say it was a real compressed college education in a short period of time. I spent time overseas as a photographer. And then when I came back, I worked everything from photography sales to 1 hour photo finishing when there was such a thing, to running a studio for someone else. And finally, 1992 was the year I said, this is it. So I began my studio in earnest and started off with some extremely good success. And it was very supportive for me. And I will not kid you, I've had my ups and downs with the economy, and I've made mistakes along the way. That's the way that you really learn.
Mm-hmm.
But would I change any of it now? Never. I really wouldn't. I've had an opportunity to travel throughout the United States. I worked with a startup company in San Francisco for about 4 years. The company was called Bella Pictures. And believe it or not, they sent me throughout the United States photographing wedding events and also teaching other photographers, excuse me. And at that time, I probably really discovered my passion for helping other photographers too. So it's been a very interesting and wonderful ride. And I'll just say I'm a visual entrepreneur at heart.
Thank you for sharing. You know, we had never, and thank you for your service. I know we both served. It's fascinating. You'd never shared that with me. You said combat photographer.
Yes.
So what is the point of that occupation within the military? I know during stuff with like Desert Storm and different types of military engagements, if you will, we had embedded reporters, but I've never talked to anybody that was actually a photographer with the military. Could you take just a couple minutes and maybe share a little bit? Because I've never heard about that before.
Well, the history of combat photographer may have started with Matthew Brady, as a matter of fact, who wasn't really in the service. But if you'll remember all of those fascinating photographs taken during our unfortunate Civil War here within the United States, there were a lot of photographs that were taken. They were used for documentation, and obviously they were used for political purposes as well. Now, I have no doubt that a lot of combat photography has been used by the government for those purposes. However, my service was spent in between Vietnam and any other conflict. So I was within a period where there was no serious armed conflicts going on. However, I did spend time in South Korea. So we were actively involved with watching what the communist North Koreans were doing. And so part of my mission at that point, I was in an aerial unit. Probably can't go into too much detail in what we were doing, but suffice it to say that that I flew in some interesting aircraft, and also did groundwork as well.
Thank you for sharing. I know that I don't think we've ever talked about that, and it's fascinating piece of your life and piece of history there. So you are not just or merely a talented photographer with a very broad or deep amount of, or however you want to say that, of skill and history and what it is that you do, experience. But you also do a lot of writing and stuff like that as well to add value to the community. And so can you tell us about that as a additional creative avenue to what it is that you do?
I'd be happy to. Communication is one of the most important things that we can learn in our life. Without adequate communication, nothing else works. We can verbalize, we can draw, we can paint. I happen to choose an artistic direction, but we can also write. And the more senses that a person can connect with another individual on, the more impact that they have. So there's the visual impact, but there's also the written impact. And by combining those two, I found that I'm able to give voice to some of my creative work, or I can use that work as a means of introducing thoughts and ideas and concepts that I have. And I try to do this in an interesting and subtle way, but it's something that I have as a discipline. I started this probably about 3 years ago now, and every day I post an image on social media in several locations on social media, along with some writing. It's not always mind-blowing writing, although some people might look at it and say it's way too mind-blowing and just whiz right past it. But for those people who do stop, hopefully they ponder a bit some of the things that I write.
And I appreciate you sharing that. You were doing, since COVID, or maybe a little before, I had caught some of the posts that you were doing of certain types of historical, like landmarks and different types. What was that? I mean, I think people should really take a look at that. What is that project? Are you still doing that? Where can people find more information? Can you talk a little bit about that project?
Well, of course, that project, as it was, still exists on social media through my Facebook and Instagram, as well as on LinkedIn, which are the three of my social media highways that I choose. It was a way of trying to help people cope more than anything else. Living in this area, I've been able to take a lot of photographs of local icons, visual icons and such. And so I figured, with people locked down and unable to get out and travel, why not give them an opportunity to at least enjoy an image of something that they may be familiar with? And so that's what I did. It ended up, crazy enough, one of the local television stations called me up and did a little short blurb and a story on it. I had no idea anything like that was going to happen. It was fun, but hopefully, more than anything, it was done. I guess you could look at it somewhat as a gift back to the local community, and hopefully as a way for people to cope with the lockdown.
Perfect. It kind of goes, and thank you for the time and energy and effort and everything you put into that, because it really sometimes is about a shared experience and a thing where individuals feel less like they're alone with what's going on. So I'm sure that's greatly appreciated, and we'll get that information so people can connect with you when this is posted and stuff, and take a look at that great work you were doing there. It's interesting because I happen to be a professional photographer, and I just wanted to let you know that is a situation or a belief that perhaps a lot of people have. How has technology affected the work that you do, and what is that greater value in not just, this is convenient, right? Or it could be. What is that? How has technology impacted the work you do? What do you like about it? And what should people know about the difference between snapping a picture with their cell phone and the amazing work that you do?
Thank you for asking. This actually is a subject that I often think about and actually write about as well, especially within the last several months, with people being inside and trying to find something to do, possibly with their time. But my history goes back, of course, in the days of film, the magic of watching a black and white print come up in smelly liquid, in a darkened room, and just, it was like alchemy, which it really is. watching these images come up in chemistry, and just there's a fascination to it. That's greatly gone now with the advent of digital photography. I was actually one of the early adopters of digital photography here in the Valley. And the reason that I adopted it as early as I could, it was extremely expensive at the beginning, is because I could see the proverbial writing on the wall. There was a lot of marketing put into it, and anytime there's a large marketing push, that genie is out of the bottle, and it's going to persist and it's going to exist. So I'm glad that I got an early start on it. I've learned a lot. Pardon me. What the differences between regular film photography and digital is the organic nature of film versus the zeros and ones of the digital world. But the results can be very close to the same. And I'm glad that you brought up the smartphone photography. I happen to have one myself right here.
Nice.
In fact, during this period of people being socially distanced and staying at home, I've been working on a series of images taken in my home and in my backyard with my smartphone, and actually encouraging people to learn how best to use those. That's actually one of the things that we talk about in the photo forum, because I don't feel that it's necessary to have a lot of extreme or expensive equipment to be able to communicate visually. It's learning the tools that you have. That's really the key. You could give me a pencil and it wouldn't do me any good because I'm not really very good at drawing. But if I can learn my way around using a tool like a digital phone or a digital camera, I can learn how to communicate with that in a visual way. Often in our marketing commercial world, we are convinced through the marketing that it's as simple as buying the right tool. This can be correct to a specific degree, but it's a much smaller degree than what it takes to actually learn how to operate that tool properly, knowing its strengths and its weaknesses. And each tool has its own strengths and weaknesses. So once you learn what those are and you can get past any hurdles that you may have using it, you're going to find yourself being a much more creative person with that tool.
With the technology and everything that we were just talking about, and how you had adopted the technology early on, I think maybe it would be potentially good if you had input on for like another video on
Sure.
On AR and VR, right? Still image into real life and immersing into that. But for this video, I also wanted to ask you, I know you do a lot for the community. There's a lot of great causes in our area. I know that you work with the Parks and Recreation locally. What is your interaction? What is your primary passion, or the charity that you would like to share or talk a little bit about?
One charity in particular that I'm very fond of. There are many that I've worked with throughout my career. Gosh, Make-A-Wish Foundation. I've done work for them, not locally, but in other places in the country. There's Children's Miracle Network, which I got an early start with. Often people are familiar with them because they're very active in the area, or they have been in the past. There's also the Parks Foundation, which I've worked with as well, and actually had an opportunity to have a piece of artwork of mine auctioned, and that was great, raising money for a good local cause for kids locally.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the one that's closest to my heart is the Sparrow Clubs. And the reason is because it has such a wonderful mission, not just helping struggling young people who have specific challenges physically, emotionally, and their families, but also the fact that it is a wonderful way to introduce a school and the children within the school to good citizenship, thinking of someone other than themselves. And I just think that's fantastic. I've met some wonderful families, been able to help out by showcasing their their particular needs through photographs, and it's just been an amazing experience. My philosophy is the best joy that you can really have in life is in some way being able to find a career where it allows you to give back.
This has been wonderful spending a little bit of time with you and sharing some of these amazing thoughts. How can people connect with you or find you? What's your website? What is your social media? If you could share that now, and of
Sure.
course, I'll put that into the links also. That would be absolutely fantastic.
Well, if you want to find me on social media, you can do a search for hashtag MDDA photography or hashtag the photo forum or hashtag the daily chalkboard if you want to find out more about my writing. Or if you don't like using hashtags, just go to Facebook and do a search for the Photo Forum or MDDA Photography or Michael D. Davis and Associates. If you're on LinkedIn, I encourage you, if you have an interest at all in connecting with me, go check out just Michael D. Davis there. And actually, if you Google me, I believe I still come up on the first page. So, which that was an interesting, if we want to talk tech, there's a few different ways that you can get to a point where you end up on a first page of Google. And that seems to be a lot of people's, goal is to get there. How do you get there? Well, you can pay a person a lot of money to do it, or you can do it the way I did it, which was a lot of hard work and organic, just putting the rubber fingers to the keyboard road and making sure that people were aware of you and putting enough content out so that it would actually be picked up by Google. So
it pays off, definitely.
Yeah, it does. It really does.
In addition to the writing that people can find and the great things we talked about today, I think there's some really important things too, also, that so many people are connecting via this medium. Would it be reasonable for people to connect with you and maybe find some lighting options and stuff? Because I know I have some shadows and everything. Is that something that you could potentially help people with, getting kind of their spaces set up and the proper lighting and all of that? Nobody wants to end up with blonde hair and looks orange all the time, right? So I'm sure that you can help them with that.
Yeah, absolutely. If anyone in the local area, or hey, if they want to pay me to fly someplace, I can do that too. But anyone that's in the local area and is thinking of starting a vlog, a video blog, basically, and is confused by what kind of equipment should I get, I can help you set up, and it's not very expensive to do it. The real key is just getting your lighting set up and getting your background and knowing, what is presentable. And I'd be more than happy to help people as part of my business to do that at a very nominal fee.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing, and thank all of you for watching. This has been Dave Tribbett with another Focus on the Community interview. Stay tuned for other great interviews soon. Have a great day.